Welcome back, everyone. Open Line continues as we discuss the question, do Tennessee schools get enough funding? Beth Brown is the president of the Tennessee Education Association. Andy Spears is with the Tennessee Education Report. Both are regular guests here, and we appreciate them spending an hour of their time to answer our questions, answer your questions. And the next question comes from Jack on line 1. Jack, welcome in.
Yes, I'd like to know where we ranked in education.
Education, you mean achievement funding?
No, just where our kids ranked amongst the other states around us, the whole United States. Are we number 1? Are we number 10,
Right.
50? Where are we at?
All right, let's listen in. Obviously, there's a number of things where we can rank our kids, but maybe he's talking about education achievement. Beth, go ahead.
Well, it depends on what you're actually measuring, but what I will say is we rank 46th in the nation in education funding. We rank first in the nation on cash we could put into education. And I will say for being 46th in the nation for per pupil funding, we do really, really well with our funds. Our students are in the top half in the nation in most academic achievement measurements, whether you're talking about ACT scores, on-time graduation, that sort of thing. We get a lot of bang for our buck from Tennessee's educators and students.
Let me ask you this. Do you both believe that if you were to get the funding that you wanted, that those achievement scores, that overall the students would do better?
Let
Yes.
me say yes. I mean, yeah, Beth just said yes. I'm a parent. My daughter's in high school and will be exploring the college process here soon. She's a freshman, but the answer is yes. If there's counselors and nurses, you take care of the physical health and the mental health. Lower class sizes. Make sure we have teachers who, one of the earlier callers mentioned you start school in Metro Nashville. One year they started with more than 500 openings.
Yeah.
Because they can't keep teachers, and so that's absolutely going to have a benefit on kids. If you look at the example I gave earlier in Kentucky, they spend significantly more per student, but they also have their kids at the lower end of the economic spectrum getting higher scores on achievement tests. That means they're able to go on to college, they're able to compete for jobs, they're able to have a lot more opportunity in life after school. Mm-hmm. And so absolutely, if we spent on the low end, the $1.7 billion that we need just to make the BEP adequate, we would absolutely see. There's no reason why we can't be a top 10 state in student performance. Absolutely no reason.
Andy, let me follow up. Why can't we keep teachers? Is it just the money, or are there other issues?
I would say money's a factor. I would like to see people try to live in Nashville on a teacher's salary. Nashville's one of the more expensive cities to live in.
It's virtually impossible, isn't it, at this point?
It absolutely is. You have to live on the outskirts of town or in another city to teach in Nashville. And so, when you're young and you and your friends are all making similar salaries, it's kind of fun. And then when you're 30 or 35 and you have kids and a family, being a teacher is not fun anymore because you can't afford to do anything. And you add the things that happen in life, buying a house, a medical emergency, anything like that. Teachers make in Tennessee about 30% less than similar professionals. Mm-hmm. That's not a recipe for keeping people.
Sure. Let's go on to line 2. Richard. Hey, Richard, welcome. Go ahead, Richard.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yes, I got I guess the same kind of question. Mm-hmm. Metro, at least here in Metro, they always seem like every year requesting more funds for the school, mm-hmm. and most of the time they get it. And they always saying that that's going to improve the education, but next year they said we need more money to do the same thing, and it's not helping. So can someone help me understand, why do you think funding is going to help this situation? More money is going to help this situation.
Okay, Richard, we will listen in. He's talking specifically, I should point out, Metro Nashville Public Schools. Beth.
Well, this is what I can tell you about Metro Nashville Public Schools is they actually, when you think about the state's funding formula and the state's contribution to the public school system, the state actually contributes much less to Davidson County and a couple of other districts across the state than they do in some of the more rural districts, because they look at what they think and they project what they think that the local county should be able to contribute, and so what they do is they actually contribute less. So if Metro Nashville was receiving the same level of funding from the state that other districts were and are, I don't think that you would have them begging for money as much because they wouldn't be so inadequately funded.
I'm going to go on it. Here's another Devil's Advocate article that I found. A high school teacher in North Carolina and a Young Voices Education fellow wrote that cries to increase funding in the name of correcting inequality perpetuate the narrative that a lack of proper funding is the source of public education's woes. But they're wrong, as proven by the success of charter schools and their smart budgeting. It goes on to write, one culprit could be the fact that in the U.S. a great deal more is spent on support staff, administration, operations, than teaching staff. And goes on and just basically says, the more distance put between bureaucrats making these funding decisions and the schools they work for, the less likely it is they'll spend wisely. This is kind of bouncing off of Richard's question here. Is there any fact to that? You obviously probably wouldn't agree.
Yeah, no. I mean, so here's the thing. So there's been lots of studies about the achievement of charter schools, and the bottom line is they're not any better than public schools. So some charter schools get results, some don't. They almost always have small class sizes. The administrators at charter schools, you look at KIPP, at LEAD, some of the supposedly great charter schools in Nashville, and the people there make way more than even the top administrators in Metro Nashville. Right. So, you're running a small charter school network and they're getting paid a lot. So that's not smart budgeting. I remember Jeremy Kane, who ran for mayor and was of LEAD schools, talking about trying to double the student per pupil spending. So you're talking about $15,000 instead of $7,400. Right. Give Metro schools $15,000 per kid and see what they can do. They're not getting it. Sure. They do outside fundraising. So, and then you have charter schools in the Achievement School District. Green Dot Charter decided in September one year they were just going to close, and those kids had to go back to Shelby County schools. And that's perfectly fine in the business market model of public schools, but public school teachers know you educate the kids who come in the door and you love all those kids, and you don't close your doors in September. Yeah,
good point. Very good point. Samantha is up next, holding so patiently. Samantha, thank you. Go ahead. Samantha? Are you there? I'll give you one more chance, Samantha. You there?
Hello?
Hi, yes. Okay. Glad you're here. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Is there any kind of tutoring program in the works for anywhere?
Tutoring. Be a little more specific.
Just to try to achieve the gap that obviously that some kids were not able to do virtual learning and have suffered. So with their classmates, there's got to be some kind of bridge to gap. Yeah.
Okay, let's listen in. I know the governor talked about, and again, some of these plans for summer classes and whatnot to try to bridge the learning gap that we've seen over the past year, Beth. Those have been kind of controversial as well. What do you see as the need for kind of some one-on-one tutoring to bring some of these kids we know have definitely fallen behind?
Well, the answer is yes and yes. Okay. We know that our students have experienced significant disruption to their learning since the onset of the pandemic, whether they've been learning in person, virtually, or some sort of hybrid model. Everything about our life has been disrupted, and so our students' learning has been impacted. There are some good things about the governor's bill that talks about these summer camps and these after-school camps that will provide spaces and opportunities for students who need that extra help to overcome any sort of skill gaps to get the extra help that they need. Now, I will not sit here and tell you that I think that bill is perfect, but there are some good aspects to it. And the good news is that we have the opportunity in the regular session to go back and tweak that bill and to make it even better, so that we are providing the best opportunities for our students to overcome the disruption to the learning that they've experienced since the onset of the pandemic.
Right. Andy, if you look at your wish list, as you heard Beth earlier, what are some specifics that you would like to see beyond maybe school nurses and counselors and some of the stuff that people would think are pretty basic? But if you did have a pile of money, what extra would you want to do for Tennessee schools?
Yeah, what's really interesting is back in 2014, the BEP Review Committee put out a report that had a long list of things. Now, that's a committee of people who are educators, who are legislators, who are advocates. The TEA sends somebody up there, or they used to. I don't know if they're included now, but they wanted more ESL teachers, for example, just to acknowledge the fact that we do have more people speaking different languages who are in the country. That's one example of an area. In addition to counselors, school psychologists would be another area. We don't have the right assistant principal ratio. So, you have people running schools who need help. I talk about this a lot, and it's important. Beth's first needs were not teacher pay, but as someone on the outside who's not an educator, I would say, like I said before, it's incredibly difficult to live in a city like Nashville or even Memphis on the salary that you're paid. So I would definitely include a raise, and then lowering class sizes. So, Beth talked about having 32 kids. Imagine if she had 16.
Thank you.
What could she do?
We got to go. Sorry, we're hitting a kind of a hard break here. Thank you both. We really appreciate your time. As always, look forward to talking to you one day again. Stay safe. We'll be right back to wrap things up, everybody.